So let's talk Saints Cowboys. That was an embarrassment. Cowboys, after their last home game, remember, was the Packers game in the playoffs. They just got destroyed. And they got destroyed again. How about Alvin Kamara? Okay, Alvin Kamara almost single-handedly won me my fantasy football game. He didn't, unfortunately. I think I'm still gonna lose. Um, but Alvin Kamara played out of his mind. And I think we forgot about him a little bit preseason. I think I ranked him like 8th or ninth as far as quarterbacks go, or as far as running backs go. Right now, he's been the best running back through the first 2 weeks of the season. He has been really, really impressive. I mean, absolutely a stud. Yesterday, 4 total touchdowns in the 44-19 win. In the first quarter, a 5-yard run, then a 57-yard touchdown pass, then another 12-yard run in the second quarter, and then in the third quarter, another 7-yard run. So Alvin Kamara had 4 touchdowns, 3 on the ground, 1 through the air. He goes off for 115 rushing yards, 65 receiving yards. Seriously, have a day, Alvin Kamara, man. But the Saints look good through 2 weeks. Granted, against the Panthers and against a Cowboys team that I don't know how good the Cowboys are. I still kind of haven't decided. I still think they're a playoff team. I think they're a wild card team. But the Saints, all of a sudden, they are starting to move into that contender status. I think preseason we kind of had them as like, are they going to fire their coach sort of a team? I put them at 7 wins. Last year, remember, I was all in on the Saints last year. I thought they would win that division. And I held on till the bitter end until about week 15. I had them winning the division. Then they finally ended up losing that game to the Bucks, and it went to Tampa. But I was always a believer last year in the Saints, but it never happened for them. But I think we forget this is still a talented roster. Chris Olave is good, and Rashid Shaheed is a real talented player at wide receiver. He is a truly talented player. But the defense held firm against Dallas. I did not like the way Dallas played. I thought Dallas was not aggressive enough. Dak struggled mightily. Derek Carr looked good. Again, we forget about Derek Carr. I ranked him at 10th in my preseason quarterback rankings, and people thought that was, too high. But I think what we forget about Carr is that when things are going well, he's a good quarterback. And this Saints team has a bit of a 2022 Vikings feel to it, where the Vikings 2022 they had been mediocre for a couple of seasons. They got a new coach in O'Connell, who was also the new offensive play caller. Veteran quarterback with Kirk Cousins. They had a good run game with Dalvin Cook, good weapons, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson. They won 13 games. They went 13-4. They ended up losing in the playoffs. But when things were going well, and it was a weak division. It was a weak division with, Rodgers last year in Green Bay, Jared Goff and the Lions hadn't really figured it out yet. And the Bears with Fields. And the Vikings ran away with that division, and they scored a lot of points. They had a good defense, and everything was going well. And when things are going well, Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. And it kind of reminds me of this with the Saints. A veteran quarterback in Derek Carr who is good when things are going well. Good run game with Kamara, veteran back. Good weapons, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. Good defense, and a new play caller, not a head coach, but Gary Kubiak, their new offensive coordinator, looks like a absolute steal. The Saints scored on their first 15 possessions. It took an interception from Derek Carr in the third quarter. They scored on every possession against Carolina. They dropped 47 on them, and then they scored another 44 on Dallas. And they scored on their first 5 possessions against Dallas. 5 touchdowns on each of their first 5 possessions. And again, Derek Carr looks good. Right now, he's probably the second best. The only quarterback that I've been more impressed by is Baker. The Saints, they could be contenders. I need to see a little bit more. Again, I'm not going to completely go all in on the Saints yet. But I think they could definitely pull off a winning record. They could definitely make it to the playoffs. I'm not going to say that yet. I'm going to say 8-9 right now. I initially said 7-10. Right now, I'm going 8-9 on the Saints. So could it be better? It could, but I need to see a little bit more against some defenses that I'm a little more, because again, Cowboys, I don't know how I feel about the defense. They looked great against a not amazing Cleveland team, but then against the Saints, their defense imploded. But let's talk some Cowboys. Dallas needs to figure it out, obviously. If the Eagles win tonight, there'll be a game back. They, of course, would be rooting for Atlanta. And the Saints, of course, will be rooting for the Eagles. But the Cowboys, obviously, you pay Dak, you pay Micah Parsons, you pay CeeDee Lamb. This is a year that you have to be good. Like you can't fall apart, especially not this early in the season. Next week they play the Ravens. Tough game. They could lose that game. Giants, they should beat. Steelers, I think they should beat. But then they have a gauntlet. Lions, Niners, Falcons, Eagles, Texans. That's a 5-game stretch where I think 3-2 is your best bet. So let's say you lose to the Ravens, fall to 1-2, beat the Giants and Steelers, get back to 3-2. Then you go through that 5-game stretch. Now you're 6-4. Then you can beat the Commanders and the Giants, get to 8-4. Bengals, let's say you lose 8-5. Beat the Panthers 9-5. Bucks could get you. Eagles could get you. Let's say you split those 10-6 and beat Washington to go 11-6. So again, 11-6 is on the table for the Cowboys. But again, that's requiring you to beat some good teams in there. Dallas has to prove they can beat some good teams. I didn't see it from Dallas this weekend. I saw a Cowboys team that looked lifeless. 44-19. They struggled in the second half. You can see there's the kick to make it 35-16 at half. In the second half, they only scored 3 points. And the Saints defense was all over them. And Dak played poorly. The highest paid quarterback in the NFL. How did he do? Against a Saints defense that is good, but nobody thinks the Saints defense is a top 10 defense in the league. Dak Prescott, 27 for 39, 293 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 picks. And they couldn't score.